훨씬 좋아서 개선적으로
Yeah, I've seen people that used to give me this change. Instant change.
I'm just going to wait a minute till this last one group comes in. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for the third technical session. I would not have been able to get the folks to come and speak about their topics without the help of a group of individuals through the technical committee. So I'd like to thank Ben Robinson and Christy, Joe Gillis, and Holly Painter for helping arrange for our speakers. Sorry, I'm a little dry. Also, what I'd like to, I know Meg's not in here, but I did want to thank her for her inspiring words this morning. And what's really encouraging is that Meg and her staff just don't talk the talk, they walk the walk. Croy was approached by a young man at the Walker School who was interested in ITS and transportation. So wanted the first, and they wanted to shadow an engineer and see, really what's happening in that part of our industry. So one of the people I called was John Hibbert, and he couldn't have been more helpful to arrange for a tour of the TMC. So folks at GDOT, we appreciate your participation in ITE, and we really appreciate that you're interested in advancing the profession when curious individuals want to learn more about what we do. Okay, our three topics for this session are the I-16 and I-95 Interchange Improvement Project, and the current status of the freight and logistics work that the state of Georgia is doing, and then we're going to finish with the capital improvement plan at Hartsfield International Airport. Our two speakers for our first topic on the interchange reconstruction are John Martell and Ron Nelson. John relocated to Savannah from Atlanta, has been an employee with HNTB for over 22 years. He has held many leadership roles through his career with HNTB with extensive experience in design, construction, maintenance, project and program management. For the last 9 years, John has worked directly for Georgia DOT, delivering the Northwest Corridor Reversible Express Lanes project, the first design-build public-private partnership in the state of Georgia. Prior to relocating to Savannah, John was the delivery officer for 4 major mobility investment program projects in the Atlanta area. John currently serves as the project director and performs daily coordination efforts with the I-16 and I-95 design-build team. He has degrees from the University of Kansas and Oklahoma State University. Ron Nelson, he serves as GDOT's on-site representative responsible for implementing Georgia DOT's delivering of mobility improvements that benefit the community of Savannah and the surrounding coastal Georgia region. Ron, together with Georgia DOT's project management team, will oversee the safe and successful delivery of these projects. Ron's a local resident, brings with him over 25 years of service with the department, and is focused on heavy civil construction, maintenance, and contract administration. Ron is a graduate of Georgia Southern University. Now they're going to do a tag team for the presentation, and I understand that it's very similar to the tag team of The Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin. So with that, I'll turn it over to the gentleman.
Thank you very much for having us here today. I hope John and I have some good information to bring you. I hope we can tell you as much as we possibly can about 1695. Obviously, we can't tell you everything, but we'll do our best to tell you what we can, and we'll reveal to you what our current situation is here at 1695, and then give you a few project updates and some highlights along the way. So let's get started here with our agenda. And what we'll do with our agenda here is we'll cover our major mobility investment program, which you've probably heard a little bit about, but we'll tell you some more about that, just give you an overview. 1695 improvement, give you an overview of the project itself, and take a deeper dive into some more specific items that John will discuss, maybe some of our challenges and things of that nature. Our bridge locations, based upon where we have bridges and in our different zones. We've broken the project out into zones, zone A, B, C. We'll discuss our project progress. Always interested to talk about project progress during the course of construction and delivery. We'll do our best to update you on that. Our current project timeline, what the timeline looks like from where we were and where we are now, and where we think we're headed towards as far as final delivery. And then we'll give you some information on how you can stay connected throughout the remainder of this project. This is a rendering of the MMIP as far as the project locations. The majority of the projects being in and around the Atlanta area. You can see how the different projects are broken down into the interchange reconstruction projects, the express lanes, interstate widening, commercial vehicle lanes. So the MMIP projects were identified originally in 2016 to improve the region by creating additional capacity, improving freight movement, providing operational improvements and efficiencies, enhancing safety, offering more reliable trip times, and decreasing travel times. The MMIP represents significant long-term investment in the state's transportation infrastructure and delivers projects that will meet a community need with a positive benefit to the traveling public. The MMIP consists of 3 major interchange reconstruction projects, 4 major express lane projects, 3 interstate widening projects, 1 commercial vehicle lane project, and 6 improvement projects on I-285 that have been advanced as a part of this MMIP program. So we're fortunate in the Savannah area in Chatham County to have 2 of these projects, the major interchange reconstruction of 1695 and then the widening of 16 from I-95 to I-516. So the 1695 improvement project, looking at this particular diagram here, gives us an idea of where this project is at the interchange of 1695 with some directional arrows. Gives you some project facts associated with the fact this is a design build project. It's separate from the normal project delivery that GDOT has. One interesting fact, we're not doing any type of coordination directly with the district as far as where District 5 Jessup has nothing to do with the oversight of this project. This project is exclusively being handled by our Atlanta Office of Innovative Delivery out of our P3 division. Project length, 7.1 miles. Project length along I-95 is 2.4 miles. So the widening itself between 516 and I-95 along I-16, somewhere in the 7.1 miles. It's probably a little less than that since we're on both sides of to the west of 95 and to the east of 516. Additional lane miles being added, 19 miles. New or rehab bridges, we've got 13 bridges, and John will discuss those bridges as far as breakdowns, the ones that are being, they're new bridges, ones that are being replaced, and then what the rehab work is along some of those bridges as well. Project cost, a little over $260 million. Design notice to proceed was October of 2018, with our substantial completion date looking at Q3 of 2022. Interesting to note that this was a best value project. So when it was let, the procurement was a 80-20, so it was an 80% the technical portion was 20%, so the 80% was the actual cost proposal. The actual lead contractor that we have contracted with is SMC, so that's Savannah Mobility Contractors, with their lead designer being Jacobs Engineering Group, and the quality assurance program or quality assurance firm is Wood. So it's just interesting to note that this is not a typical delivery model that GDOT has each and every day. It is a design build. A few of the benefits for 1695 improvement here, looking at the different areas here that we're trying to make improvements on. The project includes reconstruction of the actual interchange that we discussed, increased safety and operational efficiency for passenger and heavy freight vehicles. The 16 widening will modify the existing median divided 4-lane corridor along I-16 between 95 and 516. Some of the interesting parts of this project also is we're building a 2-lane emergency use median crossover along I-16 that'll be placed in the median between Dean Forest Road and I-95. And then we'll have a collector distributor lane along I-95 for the northbound traffic that is moving along the loop ramps, which will remain in place to the east. The existing loop ramps to the west of the interchange are being done away with as a part of the partial-turbine. So as far as some of the deeper dive and go into the actual project, I'd like to ask John Martell if he'd come and we'll do our tag off. I'll be Stone Cold Steve Austin, and
You can be the Undertaker, whatever.
All right. Thanks, Ron. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see you all. Hope you didn't have too many cookies and make you fall asleep now. But I'm going to go over some more technical aspects, show you some really cool pictures, kind of give you a visualization of what we're doing now and what it's going to look like when we're done. So this is the original, built in 1967, 71 time frame is the I-16, I-95 interchange. As you all know, it's woefully under capacity at this time. That's what brought us today to our project. This project is the very first in the state of Georgia to have a partial turbine interchange system. It's pretty unique because of the rotary design layout. We're actually building these bridges now. The light yellow represents I-16 westbound to I-95 southbound, and then the green represents the movement of I-95 southbound to I-16 eastbound. These are really heavy traffic and truck volumes through here because of the Port of Savannah. Just an unbelievable amount of traffic intercoastal with the I-95 corridor. And the problem is now is that with this Cloverleaf interchange, we have a lot of, sometimes we have accidents up on top of the bridge deck because of that really short weave at the top of the bridge deck. So one of the ways to fix that is we're going to put in the CD lane that Ron touched on. And it's going to basically take away all those conflict movements, the delays, the slowing down, speeding up, to try to merge into traffic and get that off the general purpose lanes. I think this is going to help tremendously. Also, we always talk about the interchange, 1695, but what people don't realize is that we're really actually doing some major improvements into the city of Savannah from the I-95 corridor, and we're going to widen I-16 to 6 lanes in the median of I-16. This work is currently underway. This also, we don't know about the east end of the project, which is I-16, I-516. We're actually making improvements down here as well. The port is just to the top of the page, but we're actually going to improve some geometry in this area. We're going to widen some bridge decks. We're actually going to totally replace several bridges. I'll talk about that a little bit more here. We've broken the project into 3 zones. Zone A, it goes from about Dean Forest Road to the west. We've got Zone B, which is between Dean Forest and Chatham Parkway. And then Zone C is what we're referring to mostly as the I-16, 516 interchange area. In Zone A, we have 2 brand new bridges. That's the turbine bridges. It's the movements I just described. And then the third bridge is an existing bridge, but we're actually reconstructing it in its entirety, and it's going to be wider and somewhat longer. That's the CD bridge, but we're also replacing the GP lanes on top of where I-95 goes over I-16. So here's an artist rendering of the project, the current condition. That's Bridge 3 over I-16. That's looking to the north. That's currently under construction right now. We have most of the production piles in place for building driving pile and putting in the foundations there. As that continues, we also have a lot of substructure work in progress on Bridge 1 and Bridge 2. These are typically, they're 2-column bents. We have 5 piles for each column, or bent as we call them. Those are 24-inch by 24-inch pre-stressed concrete piles. And they range anywhere from about 60 to up to 85 feet in length. As we continue and progress, you can see how the project's going to come to fruition. And then this is a final concept of what the project will look like in the end. Going into Zone B, we have Dean Forest, which is actually, after our contract was awarded, the department led another contract within our contract. So that's created some challenges for us, but it's going really well so far. Really, lessons learned, emphasis on communication, getting these contractors to communicate with one another. Ron's actually managing this project. And then we're also going to raise Chatham Parkway, which is it's a substandard clearance. It's been hit several times because it's built in the 70s. And so we're going to elevate that by 6 to 8 inches in height. The current Dean Forest project, it's going to be a new DDI, Diverging Diamond Interchange. It's being built by Reeves Construction. It's about a $34 million project. And they are currently putting in soil nails and going to build half of that bridge beside the existing Dean Forest. That's currently going on right now as we talk. So as we go into Zone C, you can see we have quite a bit more bridge work going on at the far east end. We have Bridge 6, 7, and 8, which are really challenging structures because, not from the complexity of the bridges, but that they're built over active CSX railroads. These railroad lines have, I've heard, up to 21 trains a day, I believe. So we have a full-time flagger on the job, 18-month contract. I don't know if that'll be enough, but we're hoping, our plan is that it will be. The problem is that we have the main spans over the active tracks and cannot work anywhere near the tracks, like within certain reasonable amounts, can't work over the top of it or can't even work adjacent to it when we have an active train going through or even parked on the tracks. So we're working really, really closely with CSX, STV, who's their consultant, they're all their structural consultants for CSX. And we have a really good working rapport with them. We have Scott Bridge, who's the subcontractor to SMC, our prime, and they have experience working with CSX. So we have some relationships there we're trying to leverage, and that's really helping with the communication and the planning and trying to anticipate the work that's coming up. They're really going to need a plan A and plan B every day because of homeland security issues. We really don't know what the time schedule is of the trains until the day before. So as you can imagine, it's pretty challenging. We're working through it. Bridges 9, 10, 11, and 12 are repairs and refurbishing. There'll be like a redecking, redoing some of the joints, just cleaning them up, bringing them up to code, making them modern. And then Bridge 13 is the only one that's really new. And, well, of course, 6, 7, and 8 are brand new, but 13 is an existing bridge, but we're going to widen it. So this is where we're at today. This is it's taken a couple weeks ago. You can see that we have a lot of the radial bents in place. You can see that we have multiple spans set. There's 4 spans. This view is to the north, kind of northeast. And last night we had a really good productive night over the weekend. I think we had two spans set over I-16. We had shut down I-16 completely, which fortunately I-16 at night's really, really low volume. It's not like we're shutting on I-95, that'd be a whole other animal. But 16 is very, very low volume after about 10 o'clock at night. So we're able to detour them without too much impact to the traveling public. But things are really ramping up right now. The contractor's doing a really good job. The only thing that's really hurting us at the time right now is weather. So we've had some weather impacts, but all in all, they're doing really good. Once we get these beams set, we start putting in the deck pans, get the overhangs in, we can start tying steel. The guys can be high and dry, as we say. They're going to be able to work out of the mud and the rain, and I think our production will go way up. So here's some nice aerial views of Zone C and in Zone B of the median work that's currently going on as part of the drainage and the widening of I-16 to the median. One of the things that's really been interesting on this job, as you know, is it's a coastal project, so the soils are a lot different than they are in Atlanta, y'all, as you know. That's why we're using concrete pre-stressed piles. That's something that you don't see in the Atlanta metro area, because we have a lot of alluvial soils, and we have granite and stones. We have spread footings and drill shafts and H piles for foundations. Well, down here we need the deep, heavy-duty piling to really kind of just to get the capacity that we need on these piles. And it can be as deep as 60 to 80, 85 feet. Here in the photo on your right, it's kind of an interesting situation. I'll try to talk quick. We had the piles were picking up. They weren't getting the capacity that we needed. They were 90% of the way driven into the ground, and they knew they were going to have to splice them. Well, you really don't want to splice pre-stressed concrete piles. You can, and there are details out there, but it's a little risky and it takes time because it's concrete, so you have to drill and tap, and you got to grout, and you got to let the concrete cure. So production and time is everything. Time is money in design build. So our contractor decided to get this Goliath pile puller out there, and what's really fascinating is it's really a simple device. It's just really heavy duty. It's got hydraulic teeth grippers on it, like pliers. It grabs it and it vibrates, and he's putting about 90,000 pounds of linear tension on that device as it vibrates. And so literally it inches out of the ground. It's not quick. It's maybe an inch every 10 minutes. It's very gentle. So, but what they're doing is they're pulling them up far enough that they can put we call them templates, which is like a steel jig. So that all the pile spacing is exactly right. So they were pulling them back out of the ground to get their jig set, and then they'll pull them out the rest of the way, and they ordered 85-foot piles because they knew they were probably about 10 foot short of what they really needed for bearing. So that was a judgment call by our contractor. There was other options available, but it's all going to work in the end, and they'll definitely get bearing. We do this thing called PDAs also. It's called pile dynamic analysis, where you can get actual real-time in the field information about the pile and its resistance and if it's being overstressed. And so we're using those for each individual pile driving, which is a lot better than what we typically do in the field, where we just kind of average it between that vent system. So we're getting a really good quality product out there by this contractor. They were a little slow to get started, but right now everything's falling together and we're making really good progress. Center picture also is this micro piles, and we also have wick drains on the project as well. So we are overlaying I-16. We're putting a cross slope correction on the existing Portland cement concrete as part of the controlling criteria requirements from FHWA on this project. We didn't want to rebuild I-16 because the pavement actually is still in pretty good shape. So as part of the project, we're going to recondition it. It's going to look brand new when we're done. And this is just a nice photo here of the bridges I was telling you, the CSX challenges. With that, I'd like to hand over to Ron, and Ron can close it out.
So just to kind of look at our timeline here, from where we've come from and where we are today, looking at our environmental process, starting back in 16, moving through our public information open house, Q2 of 16, selecting a developer and going through the procurement process, doing a second public information open house in Q2 of 19 as final design is continuing to move through with our selected developer. At that point was Savannah Mobility Contracting, and then moving into construction beginning a little over a year ago, Q1 of 20, and final design moving forward and becoming closer to being completed, and then we're anticipating our open to traffic Q3 of 2022. So that's where we are with our current timeline. And this is a way to try to get involved a little more with our contacts directly to our project. So these are just the different ways to stay in touch with how this project is going to move forward, with some updates regarding our project website, our project email address, project hotline, if you dare call, and then also with our project social media, how you can stay in contact there. So it's our presentation for 1695. So thank you very much for having us.
We'll take questions at the end, but they mentioned about the hotline. I understand that if you do call and have a question, they get back to you within 24 hours. So you don't get lost in the voicemail world. They will call you back. Our next speaker is Tom McQueen, who will be talking about the freight and logistics no. How do I do that? Okay. All right. Thanks, Christy. Tom serves as the Assistant Administrator in the Georgia Department of Transportation's Office of Planning. Since starting with GDOT in 1995, he leads a team focused on freight and transportation planning studies around the state. Tom's GDOT project portfolio includes high-profile studies including Georgia's truck-only lane needs identification study and the State Freight and Logistics Plan. That plan won FHWA's Transportation Planning Excellence Award and named the second best state freight plan by the American Motor Trucking Association. I don't know what's wrong with that group. You guys weren't first. But anyway, most of the plan's recommendations have received funding commitments and are proceeding towards implementation. Tom is active on a number of industry committees. He chairs AASHTO's Freight Task Force and is a member of their Special Committee on Freight. He's the co-chair of the Eastern Corridor Coalition's Freight Committee and represents GDOT on the Institute for Trade and Transportation Studies Freight Committee of SASHTO states. And he is a standing member of several TRB freight committees, as well as an invited participant on numerous TRB research projects. With that, I'll turn it over to Tom.
Sounds impressive, but who around here raises their hand and calls me, hey, there's Freight Guy? That's like known as, yeah, I'm Freight Guy. US DOT started calling me Freight Evangelist. So that's a new one, so I'm gonna convert all of you. Although you guys are already doing this. Who uses this to shop? Everybody, right? So you guys are already amateur experts, so I'm gonna deputize you by the power invested in me by nobody. That's how we're gonna do it. The freight plan. I've talked about it, I think I was here 2 years ago, and I said invite me back because things will change. And guess what? They continue to. I'll talk about that in a minute. Federally required. We were doing it in Georgia before we were required to. So we were country before country was cool, so I like to say. And we are, it's time to update it again. So it's coming. That's what we're going to talk about. A little bit of a blast from the past. This is what the freight plan that I'm working off of now. It's shopping list of projects. Probably this kind of second and third tier, a lot of, I call them major projects. There's a lot of projects that were recommended, but you see a lot of interstate projects. And we weren't calling those MMIP projects, but if you look, you're like, wow, that's a lot of stuff that became MMIP related. So that is our shopping list of to-dos. Anything in green, I don't know if it pops up pretty well, the green checks, almost like a punch list. Those, a lot of them are either under construction now or they're real close. And then I said, well, let me look at the rest of them. You know, they're not green, but they're kind of yellowish orange. A phase of PE might be in a tip or a step or just getting underway. So Georgia's done a really good job, thanks to our legislature and our governor, to bring the money to the table so that we can plan and deliver. And I know a lot of states are not in this position. So, you know, what's the first thing you do if you kind of, your chore list is done? Well, you got to get ready for the next one, and that's what my freight plan's going to do. First one, we talked about this. In the middle, MMIP program, you can see the map. Hey, on the left is our top truck volume locations around the state. Kind of coincides a lot. And folks say, well, that's great, but you know, MMIP projects, the hot lanes are not for trucks. I think I said this last time I was here, the Northwest Corridor project. It improved traffic so much in the GP lanes where all the trucks are. I go around the country and I say, that's a freight project. And nobody argues with me anymore because you're helping a corridor and you're helping trucks in that corridor. So the number one location for trucks in the state is still 285, 75 just outside of 285 in the Smyrna area. I cut it off at the top 27 instead of top 25 because if you go up, if you leave 26 and 27 on there, you pick up I-24, which I go to Washington, D.C., they're like, you don't have an Interstate 24 in Georgia. So yeah, we do. And it's actually in our top 27 because the it picks up that Atlanta to Nashville route. So there's a lot going on. If you're curious and want to see the top 50, I went ahead and pulled those in too. Just by looking at this, you can kind of already see. If you can't see the numbers of the ranking, you see 95, 75, not that 16 is not important, but we're talking raw volume. And a lot of these corridors serve Georgia, a lot of them serve the Southeast, a lot of them serve everything east of the Mississippi. So they're the big dogs of truck volumes. I talked about the big projects that we recommended. Well, again, there's a shorter list too of smaller projects that are not really that small. So around the port, when I keep track of these, a lot of these are green, open or under construction, a lot of green on the map, which is good. Again, things that were proposed that are delivered or being delivered. Last one to make it across the finish line from this freight plan will be the Brampton Road project, which will let next month. So, I've told you we've done a freight plan, we're going to update it, and the next one is going to be slotted to be sent to the FHWA for approval in January, but we've always done things in Georgia, things that support freight, not specifically, they don't say freight on them, but I see state rail plan updates, airport economic impact, because air cargo is a big deal, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Truck parking is something I'll hit on, but this has always been something in Georgia's bloodstream, and somebody told me years ago this is important to watch this in my career, because again, as people start buying things off the internet, I didn't come up with this idea, but he said every time you use this, you're inviting a truck towards you. The old days, you'd go to the mall. That's how old I am. You'd go to the mall to get your stuff. And now you've got a truck. It might be a semi that comes part of the way, and then the Amazon Sprinter van comes the rest of the way. But we are doing this, and we need to know about this, and it's important. I won't spend a lot on this, but this, I think, dovetails really well of our industry panel folks. Basically said, and Georgia's been doing this. Georgia DOT has been doing this. Not so much when I started 26 years ago, but is now in our brain to think in it from a business perspective. That's what this is. The state strategic plan was done earlier this year, and you see the words customer expectations. I mean, it's growing in the business. These are things that we have to be doing to make sure that we continue to be the place. Again, people in South Carolina, North Carolina, they're great people, but they're ultimately competitors. And for me, freight planning is one of the biggest economic development planning opportunities we have. So we keep ahead of the other states, and people decide, businesses decide, Georgia's got it going on. We're going to move there. We're going to bring our jobs to Georgia, and we're going to employ Georgians. That's that passion that I bring to this, which is so important. Well, here's some things I will go forward into my next freight plan update, the National Freight Strategic Plan. This is US DOT's product. They came out just at the end of the previous administration. I won't read it, but a couple things. The first bullet is it's going to inform and influence state freight plans. So I have this definitely on my radar. I put a little arrow on that explain, you hear the word modes, intermodal. What's a mode? On the planning world, mode is air cargo, truck, rail, ports, and pipelines. So you'll hear me talk about that later, but that's the big kind of the magic fire that we have to see how things move. Things move by one or both or multiple versions of this. I don't really know too many Walmarts that have a rail spur that backs up to them. So a lot of things move by rail, but with that last 5-6 miles, trucks are still at the beginning or end of a trip. This map shows it. It's from the National Freight Strategic Plan, and this is what I call the planes, trains, and automobiles. These are cargo volumes by mode. Blue is the Mississippi River, so a lot of barges. Red are the interstates where the trucks are moving. Green is the rail volumes. Anybody know what's going on what's going on in Wyoming? Coal. So this map is 2017. It's old. We expect that green line to dissipate, to get smaller. And the railroads know this. They've known it for a while. As coal comes out of favor to generate electricity and gas turbines come in, natural gas, or solar or wind, there's going to be excess capacity to move freight on the rail lines. If you want to see Georgia a little high res, you can see again. I told you earlier about I-75 picks up a lot of volume. If we were a country and Florida was a country, Florida would be our #1 trading partner. So that's why I-75, and you drive, folks have driven about it and said, yep, lots of trucks in 75, and that's why. As people continue to move to Florida, they need food, they need materials to build houses. You're just gonna see more of that north-south movement as Florida just basically consumes things. A lot of things that we make here in Georgia, which is not a bad deal. National Freight Strategic Plan also talked about how things move nationally over time. Two things. Look at the graph is going up, meaning more freight in the future. Truck, the dark blue, is the most predominant way. If you go places in like Pennsylvania, the Northeast, they have a lot more rail infrastructure. They're more dense. They move more things on rail. In the Sun Belt, trucks are pretty much the way that most things move. I mentioned Florida population. Well, what about Georgia's population? We're going to have more people here. We're going to consume more things. This kind of shows the jump of Georgia, 2020, 2030, 2040. This kind of surprised me. I grew up outside Chicago, and everybody thinks, oh, it's Chicago, it's Illinois, it's going to always be up there. So Georgia's going to be #5, bigger than Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan. So if you're getting that, again, more people using their phone to buy things, build houses, put in sidewalks, you need aggregate for that. So just population, economic activity. This is what it looks like now in Georgia in terms of how things move and by what mode. And this map, I changed the colors just to trade it up. So orange is the predominant mode. It's trucking. Not that rail's not important. We're expecting this to change over time. Most states are again. When coal comes off the rail lines, freeing up capacity, and the railroads are really competitive because they know they're going to lose business to the coal companies because coal is literally the bread and butter. That's the biggest profit center right now. Going forward, they're getting really competitive with the trucking to basically compete in terms of reliability and travel time. Everybody here, not that everybody's from Atlanta, but who is kind of Metro Atlanta-ish? A lot of them. Even if you're not, you've been to Atlanta and you've seen what I consider the kind of the holy trinity, the top 3 inland distribution markets. So why are there so many trucks in Atlanta? Dallas, Chicago, and Atlanta kind of stock the store in the hinterlands. The lines on the map show how far they go and the width of the tonnage. You can't see it very well, but I noticed one thing. Dallas is a great place. I have family there, but our red lines in Georgia go all the way to the West Coast. Dallas doesn't permeate very far east of into the southeast. So Chicago and Atlanta, coast to coast. Things are flowing everywhere, but in Georgia, Atlanta kind of stocks the store in the southeast and will continue as the population increases. There's some numbers at the bottom of the screen if you want to, again, I talked about higher tonnage moving by freight. So there's some numbers if you like the numbers to figure out how much more we are moving by truck in Atlanta versus the rest of the country. Won't spend much time on this except these are the every dot is where a job is. So there's not a lot, people think, oh, it's all in Atlanta. I'm going to transition and start moving you away from that. I see a lot of dots not in Metro Atlanta. This is a trend that's starting to happen more and more. Matter of fact, I don't know if I saw this, the governor announced this first quarter of FY 2021, which was what, about a year ago? Yeah, a little bit less than a year ago. COVID, and 83% of Georgia's economic development was happening outside Metro Atlanta. When I saw that, I was like, okay, my thesis is correct. A lot going on. Automotive manufacturing, we had one of our speakers from Kia. Look at all the dots in Georgia. People say, well, there's no car plants there. Well, there's people make components and subcomponents and parts makers. So a lot of it goes into Kia. Their parts come from these suppliers. Some of their parts come, you heard the speaker say, from air cargo. Some of them come by ship. But a lot of these parts companies are making parts also for BMW in Greenville, North Carolina, Mercedes-Benz in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Volkswagen in Chattanooga. So a supplier might make a part for 3 different for 3 different cars. And there's a lot of business in Georgia, a lot of jobs. Warehouse distribution, I won't spend much time on that, but a lot of these are big dots. The biggest dot by volume is the Target International Center just outside the port. The second one is in Statesboro. That's Walmart. So those are the 2 big ones because stuff's coming directly from the ship. First stop, that's where they are, to get broken down and sent out to that next level of distribution. Third one you might have come through is the Academy Sporting Goods, just about 30 minutes east of Macon. It's like the 3rd biggest one. And by the way, these are big in Georgia. They're also some of the biggest ones in the country. We're right up there. Ag, I won't spend a lot of time on this, except, again, look at those dots. Ag is still the #1 business in this state. And food production, not just growing peanuts or pecans, but processing it. There's a Frito-Lay plant in Warner Robins. I don't know if anybody knows that, for the Southeast. So we not only grow it, we make it, and it ends up in grocery stores. Remember I talked about a lot of people in Florida? I don't think there's a lot of food manufacturing in Florida. In Georgia, we're the biggest in the Southeast, followed by North Carolina. I put the map in there for fun. This is my next freight plan of when crop calendars, and start asking the question, when things get harvested, when it's harvest time, trucks start to pop up to bring things in from the fields. So when I see that, I think, impact on rural bridges. I don't know, let's look at that. That's a freight issue that's important in rural Georgia. Chris, I know you were down there. Anybody in Savannah that went down there and was lucky enough to go down and see this? I wanted to give out free VR headsets and have you guys look at this so you could be like, oh Lord, it's big, isn't it, Chris? That's big. Came in May. Biggest ship so far to hit the East Coast. 1/4 mile long, 1,300 feet. This is not the biggest one. The biggest ships in the world are going from Asia to Europe. So these are not the biggest ones. But they just all keep getting bigger. There's another way to see it, a little perspective. Wow, that's all I'm going to say. So the port we've all talked about is important. I threw up this information. I won't read it to you. You guys can see the bold stuff. Savannah's unique in that we export a lot out of it. It's about 50-50. Port of LA Long Beach, most of the stuff they import. They export empty containers. Georgia, the Port of Savannah exports stuff that's made here. It's about 50-50, which is really unique in most international ports in this country. So agriculture, I talked about being a big deal. The statistics came in last year. It is a big deal. A lot of chicken goes out of Port of Savannah. It goes to China, goes to Russia. It goes to Cuba, believe it or not. So all the poultry you see in North Georgia, it's going. Atlanta, I won't spend much time on this, but Atlanta Regional Commission does have the numbers to find out what is that relationship. Because not all trucks leave the port and go directly to Atlanta, but a lot of them do. I'd shown this last time. It's the state travel man model. It's kind of hard to see, but on the left you have the base year, what we consider current year in the planning world, and the future. 3 things popped up to me. The kind of spider web around Atlanta, you start getting more color because those off the interstate, those arterials are going to need a lot more truck volume. Number 2, I see this red line on I-75. It's kind of penetrating farther down into South Georgia. Again, Florida's our big trading partner and will in the future. And the third thing I see is these blue lines in South Georgia. People think, oh, they don't carry trucks. And quite a bit of them do. I've followed big platoons coming out of the port. I had a meeting in Valdosta, and just I didn't want to pass them. I just kind of blended in with them and see where they're going. And they are using this 84 route, which is why I showed you earlier, US 84 is a pretty big freight corridor in South Georgia. People say, well, it's not the volume seen in Atlanta, but it is important to the state. You probably have heard the port folks talk about Mason-Mega Rail. In a nutshell, I won't read this. Port of Savannah already has the largest on-dock intermodal rail facility. So I told you a lot of stuff's moving by truck, but that doesn't mean things can't change. And we can't help, we being the state, help make shippers be able to make decisions that's best for them. If a truck makes sense for them, they're going to do it. But if we can do anything to make it more attractive to use rail, the state's doing it. In this case, the Port Authority. GDOT was a partner in the very bottom of the overpass, which was the picture at the bottom in the previous slide. But they are pretty close to being done and putting track in. They think right now 20% of the stuff that comes out of the port leaves by train. They think that they expect by 2030 That number would go to 30%, which you think, well, that's only 10%. That's a 50% increase. Will it solve all the problems and suck all the trucks off the road? No, because same reason you all drove down here instead of, took a flight, because there's a flight out of Hartsfield to Brunswick. It just made more sense. If you got kids, you're gonna drive. So shippers make that decision too. Rail or truck, rail or truck. And they're gonna make that decision. And I can't make it, but we're gonna make it so if this truck makes sense, or rail makes sense for some shippers, they've got that option. They know Georgia's a great place to come and do their business. Inland ports. You guys have heard those? This is from the ports presentation, what they have. June, if anybody heard, they're already talking about expanding this. One in Northwest Georgia and Chatsworth. One in Northeast Georgia, they're quoting these dates, this was as of 2 weeks ago, that they're gonna start construction this summer of 22 and open in 2024. The one in West Central Georgia, that's still being talked about, but that would be to serve Kia. The first one that folks have heard about is down in, I didn't leave it off, they did, is in Cordele. That one isn't their baby, they have a marketing agreement with them, but they didn't start, design, or operate that. But the Cordele Intermodal Center is still there in Southwest Georgia. Okay, the good stuff, you guys. This is the stuff that's gonna rock my world going forward. The change agents, disruptors. Internet of Things, we've heard it, what does that mean? The picture doesn't do the justice, but it's it's a ship, it's a train, it's a truck, they're all connected to the cloud. So real-time information about raw materials, where parts are. We heard the speaker from Kia talking about their suppliers and knowing where things are. And in the future, it's not gonna be a lot of talking, it's just gonna be all digital, and they're continue to go that route. And Mr. Heath is gonna give him the shout out for what's coming up is, GDOT's already working on this. You talked about the stuff, and the SIGOP stuff in Atlanta. The in-cab messaging for the freight one, my favorite is to talk about on 307 and 21. This is what you got now, 307. The truck's approaching the rail, head to the port. Look, trains on the tracks. And an example in-cab message on the left side you'll see is letting a trucker know, hey, thanks. I'm gonna take the next signal, I'm gonna take a right and go over this grade separation. Might take a little longer, but it sure beats not being stuck at the tracks, because the biggest thing I hear about from private sector, they don't talk about congestion in Atlanta, because they say, you're not gonna fix congestion in Atlanta. You're not gonna fix it in Miami. This is the way it's always been. What we can't deal with is unreliable trips. If you fly, you go, and you figure they say get there an hour and a half early. Okay, you don't want to do it, but you build it in. Truckers and shippers do the same thing. So they don't like unreliable surprises. And this is an example. If you can give them some options, they can keep moving. I'll spin through this pretty fast because most people know this. Talk about e-COVID. Yeah, with COVID, look, it went like this. That's about the same time I stopped shaving because I thought, COVID's not going to take that long. But I'm going to keep it up. I'm saving money on razors. This I found last week. McKinsey talked about, and I apologize for the dots, but each dot is a country. We're one of those. So this is called digital adoption. How many people were shopping online before COVID? During COVID, it went up. Here's the thing that's happening now. It's dropping back a little bit. Sometimes it's fun to go to the store. Sometimes you just don't, I don't like, my sister-in-law buys shoes online. I can't do that. I have to go to the store and put shoes on. That's just me. Do I know what that means? No, this is as of July 7th. McKinsey is saying this. So the dust has not settled yet. Another thing that's fun, I remember I was a kid, the giant sucking sound. It was Ross Perot talking about NAFTA. NAFTA got replaced, went into effect July 1st, USMCA. This is the industries it will affect. I don't know to what extent they will be affected because the regulations are still being promulgated in Washington. But they did specifically say what manufactured goods are going to do. And at the very bottom one, look, auto and auto parts. Remember the map I showed you all the dots about auto parts and we had somebody speaking from Kia? I don't know how this will change the automotive environment. That's one of those policy things we have to look into and see what does this mean. Truck parking, won't read it, just the fact that I'm going to get into it. We've done some early analysis in-house. These are areas where there's existing truck parking demand. You see the blob of Atlanta. People say, well, yeah, it's Atlanta. Everything happens in Atlanta. No. You're starting to see blobs in what's that? That's Valdosta. What's that? It's Tifton. Tifton has a Target distribution center. What's that? It's Douglas, Georgia. Douglas, Georgia. There's a Walmart distribution center there. So again, there's urban issues, there's rural issues. The scale might be a little different, but they're still out there. We pulled up our land use because a good planner knows this land use in focus. So on the right is potential truck parking demand. These are places that haven't even been built yet. It could be warehouses, manufacturing, but we have picked them up on radar. So trust me, we're going to dig into this very deeply. This is something, if you guys work on projects in suburban areas, will definitely, I think, affect most people in this office, or this room. Some of these are probably not this Amazon. They're not always going to be on state routes, right? They're not actually going to be in places that there have been warehouses before. Because, 10 years ago, it was a big deal. Hey, I can order something and get it the next day. Now it's like, no, I demanded it 2 hours. And so that's what Amazon's doing. And they announced this, the date on this was September 2020. Again, dust is still settling. I won't spend much time on this because I bet most people in the room have seen these if they watch the board presentations. Thank you, John Hibbert and Andrew Keith. The board presentation, the commissioners presenting what traffic has been shifting. So that black line is the 0% change pre-COVID and up to June. So this is just all volume, all vehicles. Okay? Urban and urban, still a little bit, below. Rural, no, popped right back up, and it's exceeding in some places, so it's back. Here's the fun stuff for me, because I'm the freight evangelist. Truck volumes on the interstates. We saw a little dip, and they zoomed back up, and it have not let up at all. Again, why? I think I'm the only person on the planet that has not bought groceries online. That's the one thing I refuse to do. I still haven't done that. But again, is this the new normal? We're still watching. Again, people go back to brick and mortar. Will this shift? I don't know. Some states never zoomed up like this. They went down and stayed down. Michigan, auto manufacturing, their truck volumes were just flat or below. They didn't bounce back. Ours bounced back. So that was on interstates. This is on state routes. If the contrast didn't come out too good, but the same thing. More trucks, you see them, you sense them, they're there. Here's something I ran across in that that impressive academic journal called the USA Today. I don't know if you guys have seen it. This was in the USA Today, July 1st. I said, USA Today, nobody else picked up on it. Basically saying the peak hour spreading in the morning is changing nationally. I said, well, two things that I took from this is, number one, they used WeJo. WeJo was the data source. Somebody heard of WeJo? It's a new data platform. Again, I don't own stock in them. Maybe I should have. 20 years ago, we didn't have these good data sets. Now the market vendors are coming out like out of the corners of this is data from connected vehicles. So USA Today, if you find that article, got WeJo to crunch the numbers and found this trend. I thought, I can do that too. So I pulled up TomTom, and I think I did this 16th Friday at 5 p.m. to see, hey, we're getting a little bit of a thing, a little bit of a AM bump. I think we are. You can't see it very well, but the red has shifted a little bit to the right, showing it. The morning peak is starting later. It's building later, it's starting later, and it's ending a lot longer. Not a lot longer, but it's going longer. So again, Mr. Truck Guy, people think, who cares? Well, I bet UPS cares. There's that big UPS distribution center that all the delivery vans come out on 85 in Pleasantdale morning. So they're trying to get on 85 heading into town, and rush hour has not abated. Ouch. So that's something I'm sure they're probably dealing with. I didn't expect our speaker to talk about it, but I'm just thinking, again, if you're a truck driver and you're like, it's 9 o'clock, it's Atlanta, where are all these cars coming from? Usually it died down. It's not. Air cargo, in honor of our next speaker, there are the three biggest air cargo airports in the state. Atlanta is one. If you live in one of these, this is from their economic impact study. These are the counties that pick up a lot of air cargo impact. They're not along Clayton. That stuff is moving from the airport and moving up. Second one's in Albany, believe it or not. Third one is Savannah, where they just announced the guys got money. That's as of like, what, a couple months ago? No, till June 30th. Anyway, I will take questions later, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom. Geez, that was a lot of information. Okay, let's see. Right. Our next speaker, and I appreciate the segue to our with air cargo, is Tom Nasalki. Tom is the Assistant General Manager for Planning and Development at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. In his role, he oversees the planning, design, and construction of ATL Next, the airport's 20-year multi-billion with a B dollar capital improvement program. In addition to managing ATL Next implementation, Tom is responsible for all airport planning and the ATL's environmental compliance programs, environmental planning and federal grants, and regulations compliance. With more than 2 decades at Hartsfield-Jackson, Mr. Nasalki previously served as Director of Planning and Environmental for the Department of Aviation, in which he led the completion of the airport's master plan in 2015. Began his career at Hartsfield-Jackson in '95, performing airfield and airspace computer modeling. Tom completed his undergraduate degree in civil engineering in '89 from the University of Utah, and after moving to Atlanta, he attended the Georgia Tech and earned his Master of Science degree in civil engineering in '91 and a doctorate in civil engineering in '94. So with that,
I just asked him to share his.
okay.
Tom, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
And can you see my screen?
There you go. Okay. You're up and running.
Okay, let's get back to the beginning. All right, well, thank you. Yeah, I just want to share what's going on here at the airport. Just real quick, some quick review. Calendar year 2019, we handled over 110 million passengers, busiest airport in the world. Had just over 904,000 takeoffs and landings that year as well. Then, of course, pandemic hit. We learned very quickly that an airport is nothing without passengers. And fortunately, we're watching now the summer's been amazing as far as the recovery of the leisure traveler. We're still waiting for the business travelers to come back, and especially the international side of things. But yesterday we had 89,000 passengers go through the TSA security checkpoints. It's just really amazing. But things are bouncing back, and so one thing that we always are focused on is trying to maintain a good level of service for the passengers as well as for the employees here at the airport. So we've always got a lot of capital work going on. In 2016, we signed a new lease with most of the airlines here. I won't go into all that, but part of that lease is a capital improvement program, and in that lease, the value of the program was about $6 billion. We've been evaluating it over the last couple of years. It's going to increase a little bit, and so we're just getting started on this program now. Just real quickly, a couple of ATL basics. We've got 5 runways. 3 of those runways are spaced sufficiently widely enough that they can land airplanes simultaneously on all 3 runways in all weather conditions, with 2 other independent departure runways. We've got 2 terminals. We've got the domestic terminal. Hopefully you can see my cursor, the domestic terminal over here on the west side. And then on the east side, the international terminal. Connecting those 2 terminals and all the concourses is the plane train, which is the underground people mover, one of the busiest in the world. And then also connecting the domestic terminal and the rental car center is the Sky Train. That's the one that goes above ground. From a cargo perspective, yeah, we got about 650,000 square feet of cargo. We're looking to add more. Down in the southern part of the airport, we've got our South Cargo facility that handles primarily international freighters. Up here toward the top of the screen at North Cargo, you've got FedEx and UPS. So we've got those two basic cargo facilities. Of course, you can't forget belly cargo. Delta and the other airlines carry a tremendous amount of belly cargo. What I'm going to do now is, as part of the capital program, I'm just going to walk us through, I'm actually going to go back to the previous slide. I'm going to walk us through 6 projects that we have going on right now. Their combined value, construction value, not including soft costs, combined construction value is about $940 million. The first project I'm going to touch on will be the extension of Concourse T North. So that extension is going to be going on up in here. I've got my cursor. The next project is for the plane train. We have to replace all 13 switches on the plane train. And so the switches allow the train to go from, say, the north track down to the south track. That's how the train turns around, ultimately when it gets to the ends. There's also the plane train tunnel west extension, and that construction is going on over here underneath, and we'll see some really cool photos of the tunnel. Then there's the 9 left end around taxiway. That's a new taxiway that's being built out over here, and will tie back into here. That allows departures from runway 27 right, departing this way, to fly and depart over taxiing airplanes. That way you don't have to stop the departures to get the airplanes across the runway. We got a south de-icing facility going on down here. Huge ramp to handle up to 10 aircraft with a support facility. And then we're rebuilding up here at the top, ramp 19, which is a large ramp area in front of one of the Delta hangars. So Concourse T North extension. This is going to be a 5-gate extension. It's up here at the very end. So you can see you've got 4 airplanes shown here, plus this empty gate here. That's where the 5 gates are going to go. This is a rendering of what the extension will look like. It's going to have a lot more volume than the existing concourses other than Concourse F. That's the most recent addition. But it's designed to handle Group 3 aircraft. So that's your A321, 737 family of aircraft. And actually, United Airlines will be moving in to the T North extension. What's interesting about this photo here, this is just a couple weeks ago. So you can see this is the T North extension proper. The gates, as we saw in that previous rendering, wrap around here. We had to relocate the Terminal North exit roadway. It used to follow an alignment that went right through here. So we had to shove it over here. As you know, any construction that we do now, there's no more greenfield site construction. If we want to build something new, we got to tear something down. So we had to get rid of a good portion of the North Economy lot up here. Had to relocate the North Parking Deck exit plaza. It's back over here now. So we had to create a lot of construction footprint, which again, that's just part of the way we have to do things here. Real quickly, also this project will open in December of next year. It's about $340 million. And one thing that we do here, we pretty much use every project delivery method. So on this one, this is a construction manager at risk. We've got pretty good criteria as to when we use certain delivery methods, but this is a CMR on this one. The next one is the plane train switch replacement. So like I said, we have to replace all 13 switches. These are original, so they're 40 years old, and they've been repaired and welded upon. You got welds on welds, and so we've said we've got to replace them. And so the plane train though has a very, very narrow maintenance window. It's only 4 hours a night. On some of these nights though, we have to have up to a 10-hour work window, which means we have to do some tricky things with the plane train while still moving passengers. So on certain Tuesday nights, that's when we have an extended closure. The plane train has to go into what we call shuttle mode, and it's just the only way we can get the work done. We had to have a special crane built to bring in, especially this piece right here, this big white one. I'm not a rail expert, but the replacement has gone very well. And so in this one, this is a sole source. We're going with Alstom, formerly Bombardier. They operate and maintain the plane train for us, and so they're leading the effort on this. To replace these 13 switches, we're looking at about $60 million. Then there's the plane train tunnel west extension. So if you look over here in the upper right portion of the sheet here, this is the end. This is the west end of the plane train. So you'll note if you're ever in that first car at the bag claim station, you see a wall in front of you. That's the end. So what we're doing is we are tunneling in from the west end going to the east, and we do blasting every night. We've probably done by now 175 blasts underneath the domestic terminal, underneath the MARTA airport station, underneath the SkyTrain airport station. It's about 50 feet down, so there have been no issues, even though we monitor everything very closely, seismically. We massive groundwater dewatering operation. It's been quite a challenge thus far. Face anything from pure rock to mixed face, and make about 5 feet of progress each night. So anyway, what the point is though is to relocate the existing turnback back over in this area. So the point here is by relocating the turnback, we're able to decrease headways from 108 seconds to 90 seconds, and then we can increase the number of passengers per direction per hour from 10,000 to about 12,000. So that project will be finished in October 2023. This one was different. This is our first progressive design build. If you're not familiar with that, that's basically a CMR with design responsibilities, because we didn't want to have anything to do with tunneling. We do a lot of construction, but we've never done tunneling. So we decided to go with a progressive design build. It's worked out real well. Here's an interesting photo of the tunnel. I've been down there a couple times. As you can see, it's quite a mess, but there's, it's tunneling. So still have a ways to go, but yeah, it's a very mucky, messy environment down there. And but it's going really well. Then after we get done and get down to the west end there, or the east end, I'm sorry, you see the gentleman, he's walking on the current ground there. We have to still take out another 5 feet, so that's gonna go down another 5 feet. So the plane train tunnel west extension, when you factor in the tunnel, we've got a lot of terminal work to do. We have to add an escalator and do some other things in the terminal. We're going to buy 14 cars, redo the train control system. That's going to come in just over $300 million. There's the bifurcation. So you can see there's one tunnel here. This is the southern tunnel. This is the northern tunnel. So the train will come through the northern tunnel toward us, and then to turn or switch direction, it goes into the southern tunnel. So this project's going really well. I mean, we got a mining operation going on under the domestic terminal, and you wouldn't be aware of it. Next one here is the 9 left end around taxiway. So we've got an end around taxiway up on the north side. That's the 8 right end around taxiway Victor. This one still doesn't have a formal name yet, but we'll be working with the FAA to give it a name. But essentially, airplanes that land on runway 27 left, which is this one down here, they will exit the runway, and instead of holding short here to cross, they will exit the runway and just keep taxiing on around. They just keep moving, keep moving. Whereas departures from 27 right just keep departing overhead. It's a wonderful operation. It works great on the north side. We wanted to replicate that success on the south side. This one just broke ground last week. One of the issues with one of the drawbacks of the project is you can see how the taxiway goes to these parking lots. So we lose a lot of revenue parking, and so we're trying to replace it. We've built other parking facilities knowing that we're going to lose this revenue parking, but that's just part of the deal. We have to balance passenger desires and airline desires, as well as our ability to generate revenue. This one is a basic design bid build. It'll be finished in December of next year, and the construction cost right now is at $56 million. Come down to south de-icing. You may wonder, do you really do a lot of de-icing in Atlanta? Well, we haven't in the last 2 years, but like during the Snowmageddon of 2014 and other events, when full-on de-icing is required, it's always such a challenge here, just because the airlines don't do it frequently enough. So we're going to be adding a much larger facility that they can de-ice up to 10 airplanes simultaneously. Of course, to de-ice, if you're not familiar with de-icing, a crew comes around in a number of bucket trucks, and they spray the airplane with a special fluid to break up any snow or ice that's on the airplane. They use, so it'll be type 1 or type 2 de-icing fluid, and then they'll spray type 4 de-icing fluid, which is a very viscous, thick fluid that will actually adhere to the airplane and prevent snow or ice from forming on it. Once the airplane starts its takeoff roll, that de-icing fluid just shears right off, and you have a nice clean airplane, an aerodynamically clean airplane, and it gets airborne, and it's a very safe operation. So this is a rendering of, these are the glycol storage tanks. So tanker trucks will come in and offload their glycol into these tanks. Inside this building here is a series of mixing facilities, because you have to mix the de-icing, the raw de-icing fluid with water, and then it gets eventually put into a de-icing truck like this one right over here, and it goes out to the aircraft and gets de-iced. So South de-icing, it's a very large project. Not the facilities here. This is about $29 million. The balance of the ramp work, a lot of pavement work, that's on the order of $100 million. And so that project is ongoing right now. There's a good photo of the actual work from a couple of weeks ago. It's right over here next door to what we call the Delta Technical Operations Center 4 hangar. And at TOC 4, as you can see, primarily regional jets that get work down there. And there's a good shot of the glycol tanks, big tanks. Next project, this is the one that's up in the the northwest corner of the airport. This is ramp 19 and taxi lane A3 pavement replacement. So this is about 100,000 square yards of ramp that has to be replaced. Some of the pavement is so thin, it's from the original terminal when it was located on the north side. So we're ripping all that pavement out, putting back in new pavement. As you can see, this is how it's being phased. So we work very closely with Delta to try to maximize either the number of airplanes they can park while we're doing our work, or maximize the size of the airplane that can get to the hangar. So there are certain phases where they can still maneuver in. They don't have 777s anymore, but an A350. If someone wanted to bring a 747 back there during certain phases, we can accommodate them. But we work really closely with Delta to really fine tune the phasing. That's why this thing is so chopped up. So so it doesn't readily lend itself to some really long pulls. But it's about 100,000 square yards of pavement, and so we've just broken ground on this one. And so you can see over here on the right, this is where Deltas can still get access to the hangar. Over here on the left, it's just starting to rip out the previous pavement and start to prepare the subgrade. Here's a nice photo of some first pavement going in. Our standard pavement section now is 20 inches of Portland cement concrete on 9 inches of soil cement. Just go with those two layers. And we are a completely Portland cement concrete facility. Only place we use asphalt concrete is on the shoulders. Everywhere else is Portland cement concrete. And you may wonder, do you use a different pavement section on a runway versus a taxiway? No, use the same pavement section, the same basic pavement section. Again, 20 inches PCC on top of 9 inches of soil cement. And you got a pretty good size paving machine there. This project is 24 hours a day. And then just always like to finish off with one of our favorites, and that is one of the canopies here. This is the canopy on the north side. And I am done. Thank you.
Okay, we do have, we're coming up onto the end of the session, but we do have time for just a few questions. If we're still going to ask a question too, but go ahead, Carla. It'll be 3 to 3.
We were flying out a couple of weeks ago, and when we went to go look for parking in the economy lot, we were going Delta, so we were on the south side, and we noticed like two giant, like vast areas of there wasn't any parking. It was blocked off, and we eventually found our way to the Atlanta West, and we rode the Sky Train to get into the terminal. But it was real confusing, and we were wondering what's happening to those economy lots. Are those going to be converted somehow?
Yeah. So, great question. One of those economy lots is being lost to the 9 left end around, so that's Park Ride A. Park Ride C, we had initially planned on reconstructing it, but what we've decided to do now is, and it's almost back up to full capacity now, but on July 1st, we started, we actually opened up, I think, 1,000 stalls in Park Ride C. Now we're up to about 2,700, and Park Ride C is a capacity of 3,700. So we're gonna totally put Park Ride Lot C back into operation, but we still have to reconstruct it. We've just done a seal coat, striping, updated the lighting. So that's, as you encountered, yeah, we do have parking challenges, and so we're gonna be I'll just say we're gonna be adding more parking here in the next couple of years.
Okay. My question's for Ron and John. You talked about the reconstruction of 16 east of 95. We'll have 2 crossover lanes, I guess, for evacuation. How's the expansion of the changeable message signs and communication? How's all that being integrated in with the interchange project?
Hello? Yeah, you don't have to jump on.
Yeah, the project has an extensive ITS design that's really unique to this corridor. It's going to be real-time travel information. I believe they call them, it'll be connected with TMC and also with the Savannah TMC or the county future. So there's been a lot of planning and thought that's been put into that, but it's going to be substantially better than what's out there now. We have that type of information on I-95, which is very helpful, but the I-16 corridor right now in Savannah it's going to be brand new. There's it's non-existent. A lot of the conduit and the fiber's already in the ground. It's just a matter of, we got to take the project far enough along that we can start installing that. It's one of the last things we do on this project. Thank you. Good question.
4-3. Tom, you mentioned the inland ports. But I really couldn't see the screen. We're at a little bit of a disadvantage. I was just wondering if you could, expound on that a little bit more again about the access to the inland ports and how that contributes to the overall network.
So the ones that I talked about, the Northwest Georgia and Northeast in Gainesville, which is, I think they're saying summer 2022 to get started. That is an initiative started by the Ports Authority under the name Network Georgia. And the idea there is, let's say if they're bringing things in by ship and they want to get to North Georgia, they market it and say, do you really want to go through Atlanta? And kind of, again, back to that point about reliability. Because what if you send on truck? What if you can, because shippers make their decision. You bring it in, it gets put on a truck, I'll just truck it, it's only 5 hours to Kennesaw. But then if you have an incident, and we talked about, like, it's a smaller scale version of what we heard the speaker from Kia say. They don't like surprises. They do not want surprise. So the travel time reliability by train is what's selling it. People might say, well, it takes longer. Again, but it's a risk that in the private sector, and when you're developing projects, it's all about risk management. So they know that the one in Chatsworth, they can get some, for example, General Electric appliances moved in recently. It's a big thing. They can serve Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, can go up those corridors because it's on the other side of Atlanta. That's a very progressive thought. Other states are picking up on that now too. South Carolina has put some in. Some states, again, it ties to the port. It's almost literally like they start using the term inland port. The old people like me just call it, it's a good old-fashioned rail intermodal yard. Remember about modes? Is it for rail or truck? Both. And the truck's still got to pick it up and take it that last 5-6 miles or maybe 100 miles. But you just don't have to roll the dice going through Atlanta. So that northeast, that's the one northwest, one northeast. Again, those are, I'm kind of babbling, but that's a Ports Authority vision and a product. And the third one they're talking about is in Kia. And the one in Cordele that was the first one out of the gate, but that was not their vision. They set up a marketing. But does it make sense? Reliability, folks, is the key. Say it takes a little longer, but they can schedule to the minute when that train's gonna arrive. And this big Mason mega rail, they'll be able to build 10,000-foot trains. That's 2 miles, all on site. In other words, the trains won't have to be, because they actually build them, put them together. A lot of times you've been around rail yards where the crossing's blocked, because they're building a train and they back up and they add a train and they move it. And so the whole thing will be built on port property. It won't block any rail lines until it's time for it to go. Then it heads out. And then another thing I didn't really talk about related to that, the last states, including us in the freight world, are gonna be, and you guys will have it on your radar too, is longer trains. That means they're gonna be blocking crossings for longer amounts of time. And we already get a lot of requests for grade separations. And that's a national thing. So trains are good. More things on train is good. Again, I don't pick trains over rail or rail over train, or rail versus truck. To me, it's not truck versus rail. They mix. Used to have pictures, and I'll let it back to you. I still have pictures where trucking companies like Schneider, Big Yellow, those big trucking companies have put their trucks on the back. When I was real little, they used to call it piggybacks. So people would think it's still train versus rail. I'm like, no, or truck versus rail. I'm like, now when you drive by and you see like trucks that have been taken off a chassis, like the actual truck part, not the motor, and put on a train because they figure, let's just get it from here to Denver. Because it makes, again, it's all about dollars and cents. The same reason everybody here makes decisions that, you know what's cheaper to drive to Brunswick than to fly. They make the same decision. They're constantly, some firms are looking every 2 days, they're looking at diesel prices and they're making decisions. They're pulling things off of the rail to put it on a truck or vice versa, based on just, they're making decisions constantly. Moving from rail to train, truck to, anyway, sorry it's the end of the day, but you get it. You get it. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, we have time for one more question before we break for dinner. 4 to 4. Okay, Carla.
What have y'all had about the project for the commercial trucks from Atlanta to, it was McDonough to, how are y'all gonna, what interchange in McDonough is the beginning of it? Because you know we have the express lanes, and then is the express lane gonna be a continuation for commercial and they'll just peel off the cars and put on the trucks? I mean, how is that working? How is that gonna work? Does anybody know?
The limits of the project were 155 in the north to the 475 split. They're actually right now working on the design of that, how to figure out where the access points will be.
Oh, okay.
And how do you do that grading?
Yeah.
How do you bring that in? And
Right.
then I've had people, because my ex-freight plan to say, you know, that's northbound, what about southbound? We just didn't have enough money. I mean, and it was, northbound, a lot of those trucks have come out of the port and they have an appointment. They're full, they're heavy.
Uh-huh.
I talked to the troopers before at that way station there in Forsyth, the northbound one, and they say almost 100% of those containers, those boxes, about 100% of the trucks with those boxes come through heavy, northbound. And they said about 50% southbound are heavy, meaning they're empties, or they're going somewhere else to pick something up, or they're going to Florida. So, again, you have to pick one, and I think we picked the right one. But I don't know if it's online or not, we're at the point, but I know there's monthly meetings, and they are, a lot of people are smarter than me answering that. I don't know.
Yeah, I believe that on the GDOT website, there's a very good aerial rendering. They actually fly the corridor, and it's very, very revealing, you know, where interchanges are and the impact it has along the existing facility. So I would encourage everybody, and I'm not good at finding things, you know, on the web, but it really is a very, very good rendering, fly through from south to north, showing all the infrastructure that's planned with the thing.
I've seen it as well. It's really, really good. Just go to Google it. Yeah, just go ahead and Google. It'll come right up. It's a YouTube. Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for your participation this afternoon. Can we have one more round of applause for our speaker? Tom, thank you very much. Everybody have a safe evening. We'll see you at breakfast tomorrow, and then the first session at 8:30. Don't forget your PDH forms.